Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm John Muir Laws, and today we're going to be sketching orca. And what I want to do is to first think about the orca as a whole, and how do we understand the patterns on the body? What are the different sections on the body of the orca that we really want to pay attention to? You get a chance to see that orca out there. What part of it are you going to be seeing, and how are you going to handle that? And also what I want to do just a little bit on drawing the water around the orca. So we're not going to be creating an idealized underwater orca. If you're out there scuba diving, that's great, but you probably don't have your sketchbook with you at that time. But you're up there on the shore, you look up, there's some orca. What are you going to be seeing? How do we translate that to our journal? And what as biologists do we need to be paying attention to so that our notes can be the most useful? It's going to be a lot of fun. If you are new to sketching, don't worry about this. This is not an art contest. The sketching and drawing is a tool. It's a way to help you pay more attention, to help you notice things and help you remember them. So don't get wrapped around the axle about, I got to make a pretty picture of this orca. Ooh, there's a dorsal fin sticking up. And now you've got to paint the entire orca. No, it's not going to work that way. But how can you translate what you see to your paper in the most sort of efficient and expedient way? What are some strategies that you can use to get more useful notes? Let's take a look. I'm going to be doing some drawing and sketching right here on my pad. And what I want to do at the start is just to help us think about the Orca three-dimensional. So instead of just a profile view, if we take that orca body, oh, you're not looking, sorry. Take that orca body and you look at it from the side, essentially you have a big oval. And then you would attach your flukes down on one end, stick a dorsal fin on top, give yourself a little bit of a bumpy nose off the other side, and a pectoral fin. But the nugget of the body here is basically a hot dog. If you're just looking at this from the side view, then your hot dog, it's easy to kind of understand that and visualize that. But what I want to do with us today is to think about, what if the orca is coming towards me a little bit? What if it's going away from me a little bit? Which will be most of the time. And just having some tools to help you visualize that will be very, very useful. So if this little sausage is rotated in space, so if you're looking at, let's say this is the orca body, when you look at it from the side, you see the side of the side of the head and the side of the tail. If it rotates towards me a little bit, I'm actually kind of looking at the front surface here. I'm looking at the back surface here. So that would mean that if this were the side view of my hot dog, the line kind of coming into the middle of that would come in here. But if this is slightly rotated towards me, you see how you start to see this surface here? That means that from out in here, that is where kind of the front, if you were to put a little stick through your hot dog, that's where it's going to be coming in. And on the back side, what does that mean? It means it's coming out somewhere you can't see where it's coming out. So let's make this little sketch in your notes. This is a little hot dog, and we're going to start, have this, the axis of rotation, if this were a little oval globe, being in here. And that means that if I draw a little circle around this spot, actually ends up being a little more of an oval, I would have a spot like that. I could draw a circle around where I see it. Again, if you're just looking at the side view, the straight side view, that circle would just be a line like that. But here we've rotated it towards us a little bit. So let's rotate back, walk back on the body a little bit. You go back a little bit further, you're not going to be able to see this far side. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this sort of rounded, especially kind of hook it in more a little bit when you get to the edge. Hook in more. And we'll do the same here, kind of hook in. So this is how I kind of think of the contours. I want to start thinking of my orca body as a rounded form. And if there were a line that went from one end to the other, if you have your head here, your eye level is right here where this is, then what's going to happen is you're going to see essentially from here to here a straight line. But the one that's above your eye level, right, if you just sort of, if I take this pen, I don't know if I'll give an example. So the one that's above your eye level, you're going to actually see that as arching up and coming back down in there. Similarly here, this line is arching up and disappearing behind that little horizon there. On the far side, these lines are kind of just going out of your view. So there's going to be a lot of what's going on out here that you can't see on the other side. You see a little bit of the other half of it, but not as much as you do on the side that's closest to you. So on the bottom, it's the reverse. So you want to start to think of this kind of grid hot dog. And actually, this is a really wonderful doodle to do. If you're sitting in a dentist office somewhere and you're just sort of waiting, pull out your little notebook. Say, I'm going to make a kind of 3D hot dog. Right? And you want to be able just to visualize that little 3D hot dog. I want to kind of just get comfortable with that general concept. We're going to be applying this to the orca. We'll be seeing the orcas in the water at different sorts of angles. So if, for instance, there's this line, whoops, coming up over the back, here over the back, that would be where our dorsal fin is going to be attaching into. We'll be hooking a dorsal fin up there. If we've got a pectoral fin, it'll be attaching along one of these lines up here in this bulby zone, rather than just an end like this. We'll be taking a closer look at the shape that you see up here. There's a little bit of a forehead and a beak. And on the back, you're going to get into fluke time. And we'll be taking a look at how to handle that. But we'll be stretching our patterns across this shape. So as we're drawing, rather than thinking of it as a flat shape, we're going to be visualizing this as a rounded three-dimensional form. And this will really help your orca come to life. And it also is going to help you when you're imagining water. Part of this is submerged underwater, and part of it has emerged on top. The water is going to be doing something around that. What would you be seeing emerging from that water? Again, thinking of this as a rounded shape instead of a flat cutout is going to be very powerful visualization. I'm going to now share my screen with you. I'm going to be looking at this slideshow and at the same time making some annotations and drawings over here. So this is going to be our reference material right here. This is going to be where we'll be taking some notes on it. Rather, again, than just watching this, I suggest sketch along with me. And what we're going to do is be able to build up a sort of visual orca thinking visualization vocabulary. As you know, there are lots of different orca, different different groups of orca in the oceans. And these types can be found, they're regional. So up where we are, we have the resident and the transient here, but there are, as you go different places in the world, the degree to which this sort of upper swoosh stripe is visible are more apparent on some. How dark the saddle patch is, the size, the shape of the dorsal fin is going to be different. So sizes of these eye patches. So there are going to be differences. So rather than sort of having in our head the generic sea panda, you want to look at what is going on with that specific orca that is in front of me right now. And so as biologists, we can have a general template of what we're seeing. And then we're going to be putting in specifically what we observe. So we'll just generally look right here. Imagine if the body is all black, we're going to add to that a little white spot behind the eye and a sort of T shape down the tummy, or more of a saguaro cactus. We'll be kind of looking at that, but there's a white spot that goes all the way down the ventral surface of the orca from underneath the head to these arms that go up on either side of its vent, and there's actually a central white spot that goes through here that you can't really see from this angle. Bonus little white spot back down here. On the top, we have the saddle patch, which is this kind of cool comma shape, and we'll see what that does also when we see it from the top or at a 3/4 view angle. Here are those again. So in different populations, the size of these and shape of these dorsal fins is going to be really, really important. Is it straight up? Is it like a little, is it a triangle? More of a sort of straight, simple geometric shape. What is going on with that? It's going to be very important. Females, you have more of the backwards hook. Males are going to have the big, tall one, but you knew that already. But I'm just saying that we want to really pay attention to the details and specifics of whatever we have on our critter. Let's take a look at some of these spots and details a little bit more carefully. We're going to start up here at the head. If you have a real orca, it has a big organ up here called the melon, and that it uses in part of its process of echolocation. And the result is that the skull, the skin doesn't follow the shape of the skull. It wraps over this big bulbous melon, which gives us this very, there's the melon right there. So we get this big sort of bump face look. So here's our melon coming out, then over the lips. And so let's actually draw this together. I'm going to start with, I'm just going to start with a little bit of a kind of the end of the hot dog coming up. And then I'm going to modify that by a little bit of a lip bump. And then we're going to come up with our melon. And rather than the water coming straight across here, if it's further away, you will see the water going across here. But if it's closer to your boat or closer to the shore, you're looking down at it at an angle, you'll actually see this edge as slightly curved. So whether you're drawing a straight edge or a curve along the bottom, just depends on how far away that critter is. Let's wrap the bottom of, maybe I need this to be a little bit more geeky. Here's my spot. Here is a white patch. Now notice it is hard to see the eye. If I would suggest to you that if you can't see the eye, don't draw the eye. Don't think you have to memorize where things are supposed to be. Just sort of getting the general patterns of what you are encountering out there. Maybe I want to use a different pen, make this easier to. So I have this little bump sticking out of the water, and I'm going to come around here, and I'm going to see if there's a little bit of water cropping up. I'm just going to suggest that there's a little bit of churn in the water right there. And look up here on the top. See this? This is a three-dimensional form. I'm going to hook this little line coming up, and then to the top of it, and wrapping down like that. So what I have is, I'm imagining that the center line on the underside of the head is somewhere in here. And so my line goes up to that and then down. You could color this in with black. I'm going to be coloring it in with gray just so you can still see those underlying sort of structure lines. Something that is kind of cool on this one is just that little bit of white happening right in here, a little bit of a reflection right there, and that helps make my orca look wet. So there's a little bumpy nose. Here we are in more of a side view, but let's just play with that. All right, so start with your hot dog and then modify your hot dog. The hot dog on one side has kind of comes a bit more straight. There's more of an angle on that forehead where that melon is. So look at the shape that melon gives the forehead. And you see the underside of the head here. White there's more black than white. And we see this dorsal fin, the pectoral fin, coming in. So I'm just going to put in a little disc for that. So these are smaller on females, these pectoral fins, larger on males. So I put in a little oval there and then modify it. So I'm going to make the front edge straighter. The back edge is going to kind of come up more at an angle and then back. I like to draw through the object to get my lines to be a little bit easier to visualize how those go. And there I go. Now I don't want to give this one too much chin. And see, I can't quite tell what's going on, how this attaches in there. Let me just let this line go up and disappear. Big melon forehead. Now this one is further away, so I could draw a little straight line across here. Watch what I do with my line here. This will just help suggest that this is water rather than just big thing cut off here. I'm going to just make a little bit of a flowy water line, and I can kind of come back. There's a few little kind of lines that are just sort of dancing back and forth. I don't want to do this for water. Sometimes right below the eye, there is a little jiggle in the so this is a great spot to look for little jiggles. You have, what is the shape of that eye pen? How far back does it go? Now, on this, I am going to do something kind of interesting when I get to coloring in that little that pectoral fin there. What I'm going to do is, as I color this in, I am going to leave the top edge of it right there white. Why am I doing that? What I'm doing there is just suggesting that there is some light that is hitting that top surface to make it a little bit shiny. I want people to envision that if this is the pectoral fin, and I were to turn it into sort of a boxy shape, that it would have a top edge like this, and this surface here is in shadow. So I'm just leaving a little bit of light right along there to catch that edge. See, each part of the orca, there are going to be details that are kind of key to point in, to kind of zoom in on. This, oops, hey, come back. Let's see if I can make this just a little bit larger for you for a moment. Yeah, there we are. Let's check this out. Where white meets black on the orca, there's going to be individual variations. So there's not just some sort of generic orca floating around out there. There is, where white meets black, for instance, here on the saddle patch, you can have this little bonus line through it. It can have a wavy edge. It can be just a little simple narrow hook. The shape of the spot behind the eye can have all these different shapes. It's going to be up to your orca what patterns it has. Does the eye patch go straight back? Or is it up at an angle? How far back does it go? Is it a little bitty one right behind the eye? Does it go all the way back to the start of where the pectoral fin is? So here we mentioned that sort of that area below the eye. Is it smooth? Is there a little bump that you see there? You want to ask your orca. Here are the little hook on the side. What I'm going to end up be calling the arms of the saguaro cactus, and you'll see why in a moment. Is it angular? Is it smooth? How much black is there on the tail? So there isn't a sort of, there's a general plan. You're going to have white on the underside of your tail. But the exact shape of that is going to be different for your orca. And you're not going to see all these details except on an orca that is washed up on a beach. But what you see exposed will give you one little zone and that you want to really pay attention to. So all these are examples of differences that you can get. The contours of the white belly, those are going to change. So this, just sort of knowing that there's this variation is incredibly helpful, incredibly powerful. And so what I want to do when my orca pops up, I want to take a look at what details I can see. So, for instance, are there any sort of spots or marks that I can see? Here we have some saddle patches, and this one here has more of a hook in it. This one doesn't. So that's as a biologist, if I get a kind of a glimpse of something is kind of coming up in breathing, I'm going to be trying to kind of lock in my idea of what is happening with this. Here we have the belly. And here's the saguaro cactus. Here's a little bit of the saguaro cactus. You imagine, so here's the base of the saguaro cactus down here in the ground. And it comes up, and here's the head of the saguaro cactus. And then it has two arms like this. You can also imagine this as one of those inflatable things in front of a car dealership that kind of wave back and forth in the wind. There's two up arms. And so by saguaro cactus, I'm saying that there's this pattern on the bottom. So when you go from the head, right, the head is going to have, the bottom of the head is going to be white. Then your saguaro cactus comes up. And the saguaro cactus is here. It's going to have two arms that go up like this. And as we saw in that previous diagram, those can have different angles, so it might have a little bit of an angle back here. And then in the middle, there is the middle part of the saguaro cactus. So it is a surrendering saguaro cactus. When you're looking at this from the side, though, what you're going to see is white belly coming along. And then one of those arms of the saguaro cactus, or the inflatable, oops, I was off the screen there. So what I've got is, if this is my, or becoming, my saguaro cactus arm, coming up like that. And then around the genital openings, there's a little beak. Yeah, so it's got a little face. Isn't that cute? So that helps us kind of think of what is the, what are the details of an individual and how to get those down onto our paper. Let's also look, there's going to be, this is sort of showing this nicely, that this outer edge of the tail, or dorsal fins can also have, there can be little nooks out of them. So any kind of damage you take during your life, those are the sorts of things that we're interested in as biologists. So here we have a partial view of this orca here, saying like, hey, let's think about these patterns and how they relate to each other. Why don't we just right now on your piece of paper, let's just experiment with getting this kind of a pattern down. This is more than you're going to see as the thing is swimming around out there. And also this one, thank you photography, is holding still. But let's just sort of think about what we do have here and put some of these patterns together. Our body is going to be really pretty deep. So I'm going to give this a deep jelly bean shape. So modifying my hot dog to deep jelly bean shape. The part that I can't see, I'm not going to worry about. So I've got my deep jelly bean. I'm going to put in a steep forehead out here because of my melon. The head patterns are all going to be in here. My pectoral fin is pretty close to that. And so that's going to be up here at the front. And look at how much space there is before you get back to that little dorsal fin. And is this one coming up straight? This one is coming at a slight angle, but it's got a curve back. Then the rest of it is hidden by the water, so I'm not going to be worrying about that. Pattern-wise, I see part of the arm of my saguaro cactus coming up in here. I should make that closer to here. I have a little bit of dark in here between the arm and the head of the saguaro cactus. My underside of my head, we're curling up. We see this comes up from the pectoral fin and over to the mouth. Give it a little bit more of beaky movement here. And this one, pectoral fin, is sort of sticking down more. They can move them down. The saddle patch is a really big deal because that, as whenever the orca surfaces, you're going to get to see this. So let's pay attention to that. I recommend just sort of lightly putting in a circle in here to get the sort of rounded back edge. Then it's going to fade to back. So the front edge of this making a curl, and the top edge. So if this was all open, then that would be, I'd be down to throwing my saddle patch. This one has a little dark comma sticking up in the top there. Shape and position of this little eye patch. Roughly going to go in here. You can notice first I'm just kind of getting my rough shape, then I'm going to refine that. It has an angle down on the bottom and then more rectangular towards the front. Any little details I can get, like, slight little notch here below the eye. That's subocular. If you're looking wondering where the eye is, if you look really carefully, you can see it right in there. And then we would it's so much easier to draw once you kind of block in the basic shape with a light pencil. So I will often use a light blue pencil. Oh, and something. Yeah, things like that. Something. How far back does it go? What shapes are you seeing? We're going to do one more of these sort of, I get to see all the orca moments. And so again, we're going to start this by just saying, here's if this was the big kind of ball of the body, I'm going to have orca face that sticks out from one end of that. So I want this nice sort of deep body here on this male. Back is going to arch into the water. My dorsal fin, I don't have room for mine, is going to be coming fairly far back on that body. Now, if this was, I was taking notes out in the field and I had started something like this, what I would do is I would just off on the side of my paper, just have a little kind of inset that helps me kind of record that this is a very vertical back, slight, more of an angle on the front. And this sort of suggests that, that this much is cut off. And so I'm not really worried about having to make a big, pretty picture. I'm more interested in just recording information about what I see. Notice how much larger the pectoral fin is on this big male here. Right, so big pectoral fin. And then our bent saguaro, as we're diving down into the water. I'm going to put in a ball for my saddle patch. That helps me kind of get this, the front edge like this. There's a back edge. And a lot of that is filled in. Now, when you are watching the orca swim around out there, how can you get all this information easier from a photograph, right? But what if you are there live? Well, what I suggest you do is every time the orca comes up and breathes, you're going to say out loud the details of whatever things you see. And you can just make little kind of notes. So off on the side of your page, you might have a little
kind of diet doodle like this, kind of thing. Like at that time, here's the eye patch. It was more of an angle towards the back, sort of a big triangle, more rounded towards the front, more pointy towards the back. The middle of that triangle was not centered, but it was closer to the back. So I just got some details about that eye patch. If you say those details out loud, your brain will remember them much better. Your brain will remember them much better. If you just look at it and you think you're going to remember this, but it's not going to work. So instead, what you want to do is to try to just get yourself to verbalize what you see. Big flat bottom D of black in the middle of the saddle patch. Right? Then you're going like, oh, they're on the right. Oh, okay, flat bottom D. And it starts at the base of the dorsal fin. Okay. That is going to then be more like that, more like that. So you're just trying to say out loud the details of whatever you notice. And then we're going to try to, you'll be able to be much more successful than translating that to paper.
So having a sense of how all these patterns stitch together on the big orca out there is great, but that you're usually not going to be seeing all of this information. Oh, look at that happy saguaro dancing down there. All right, so here is that sort of pattern on the belly. Here's the head of the saguaro, or that little, car lot dancing inflatable guy. But notice that you don't see those arms. Those arms are just going off to the side, but you know what's going on. So visualizing how those pieces stitch together really helps. Here, notice there's dark along the back of the tail. There's dark coming right up in here. And each little part of the body is going to have its own little thing. So when you do get a glimpse of something orca-tastic happening, you're going to verbalize that, and then you sort of use this rounded form to start to get that on your piece of paper. Here, just thinking about the whole body shape, let's all draw for a moment. What would your basic shape be?
For me here, what I would be working with is I'm first going to draw a straight line down like this, and I'm going to have an arch line coming like that. And this end up here is going to be my head with my little kind of bumpy nose. My little dorsal, so is this male or female? Sticking up there, little pectoral. Maybe I want that dorsal to got a curvy back, but not super curvy. A little bit straighter than some other females we've seen. Right. Something that is nice to notice is the way that the white comes up here on the side of the face. White is coming up here, and then once you kind of get past the pectoral fin, it's popping up into the side of the head. Gotcha.
Aww. So on this pectoral fin, so let's back it up. Oh, nope, that's the wrong direction. All right, I want you to notice something on these next three photographs. Look at this one here, and notice this highlight along this side that is catching sunlight. Look at this one here. It's a foreshortened view, so the whole thing is flatter. But notice this highlight along this side. Oh, interesting. That gives that sort of this sense of dimension. Let's look at this one here. All right, this is foreshortened even more, but there is a highlight along one side giving you a sense of the values. Actually, we also have this sort of dark zone in here. So let's not you, let's come back here. So generally speaking, when I am drawing a little pectoral fin sticking out, notice there's a surface that is facing towards you. Is that, so if this was sort of if we make this into sort of more of a kind of hard-edged diagram of the little fin, either this surface up here is going to be catching light, and this is going to be in shadow, or this surface over here will be pointing more towards the light, and this will be catching shadow. So you could draw this, just depending on the light direction, in one of two ways. So either you will have the darkness over here on this surface, with the sunlight catching the top, or the sunlight will be on that front surface and the top will be catching. Okay, so one will be more in shade, one will be more, but what that does is it will help you kind of get a sense of thickness to your, instead of having your pectoral fin just be a flat little circle thing on the side of the body. This will kind of give it some thickness, some chunkiness to it. There's bones in there. Right, so here I'm putting dark along the side and light along the bottom. Because they're pointing different directions, one will be catching more light than the other. So pay attention to that, and you'll get dimension in those fins. Now, okay, so this is the part that you really do get to see, right? You do get to see that dorsal fin sticking up, and look at the variation that you get over time. Isn't that wonderful? Variation in saddle patches, and some have little nooks and crannies that, so those don't heal. Once you get a little ding out of your dorsal, you're going to be carrying that as your little identifier for the rest of your life. So we biologists love those little nooks and crannies. First, pay attention to the general shape. Is the front edge straight? Is the back edge straight? So on this one here, this edge is more straight up. This back one has a little bend in it. Here, this front edge is more angled. The back one is more, but that's going to be different on different individuals. So how the angle of those two sides. Don't assume just a generic orca shape. Pay attention to yours. Is it straighter in the front? Is it straighter in the back? Which one is more vertical? What is the angle that you come down? And how hooked is it? Again, females being more hooked. Our saddle patch, so this is the part that you're going to be able to just see all the time, every time we're coming up for a breath. All this data, this critical amount of data, just pops in your face. So let's just give that idea a little bit of love. So if this is the back of my orca coming up, and now I'm not worrying about the whole thing, I'm saying to myself, all right, so is this one, this one is more, it's straighter in the back, and it is skinnier in the front. My saddle patch, remember the saddle patch is going to go from about halfway back here. It's going to be roughly in this area. And so we're going to go from the base of this, and what is that shape going to be? Does it have little hooks coming off, or doesn't it? Does it have the extra little bar in there, or doesn't it? Are there any little nooks, cracks, little dings in it? If so, I want to get those. Those are the things I'm paying attention to. And then I'm going to put this in the water. So if we're cruising along, there's often the water sort of piles up, kind of froths down here, and then sort of washes away here. So you get this, imagine a little kind of teardrop shape like that, sort of more pointy towards the back.
Because here, this water is just whoo, so kind of zipping along. This time, as I'm coloring this one, I'm going to leave a few little highlights of white paper right in here, just to suggest that there is some sunlight catching the wet surface of the orca. A few little kind of glistening spots do a lot to sort of sparkle up your orca. And then next to it, also here in the pod, start to kind of, when you see a pod together, you can put, you can add them together in your sketches. See, there's a little kind of zigzag suggesting kind of there's some water back here. You can also put some tone into your water. And something that's also kind of fun to do, this is kind of more of a graphic illustrator thing, I'm gonna put just a little frame back here and have these dorsal fins kind of break out of that frame, just so that I can show that there is water is dark back here. That's kind of fun to do. And it's, then I get to kind of have that dorsal fin pop up beyond the frame. That is fun.
Let's try this one.
Let's try this one. Everybody, so get out your notes. So I've got a little kind of teepee of a little bit of back coming up. Oh, look at that straight front. Straight front. All right. A little bit of an angle, and then back at an angle. And this comes forward, then down at an angle for my little, and back here, and then it's scooping up here, and then it's trailing down back. All right. So before I ink this in, I look at it again, like, you know, I think I want to make this just a little bit taller. And there's a bend right about here. All right, so this part is coming up straighter, and then this part has more angle. But see, once you get that initial shape in, you can refine it before you kind of commit to your final lines, either with a more firm pencil grip or a pen. So I like to block it in lightly at the start. Then you're not committed to those lines. Change it, refine it. Now, this pen that I'm using right here, this is called a combo brush pen. It's just a pale gray pen. This is the N75 combo brush pen. And they come in different darknesses of gray. And they're useful things for just kind of like, I want to get a bunch of quick value and tone on my sketch.
Aww. Oh yeah, the reason I put this in, just because, number one, it's fun to kind of pull kelp around with you.
But if you're making a sketch of this, let me sort of show you what I would initially do. Here's sort of this ball of the body sticking up. I would really envision that center line coming down the middle of the body and kind of arcing it around. So this is where the sort of three-dimensional thinking really comes in. And my dorsal fin is going to stick into that. It's going to attach into that line going back. So that we're going to be coming in straighter here, and then it's going to come down and fade into that line. So I'm attaching this surface to that center line of the body. Let's think about this in terms of lights and darks for the kind of drawing aspect of it. Where is it light? Where is it dark? Squint at it. You squint at it, you'll see that this area right in here is light. If you squint at it, there's an area of light across the top, and there's an area of real dark kind of coming down and making that little line around here. And then you have your kelp. Your kelp. Like that line. All right. But if I wanted to just put in a little bit of water sloshing around here, I wanted to put in a few lights and darks. Where am I going to keep it light? Right over here. Where am I going to keep it light? Right over here. So my initial darkness is down in this zone here. And then there's going to be an area of extra dark. Where is it extra dark? It's extra dark on this surface here. And a little bit of a triangle coming down here. Do that again. Extra dark in here. So a little reflection of the kelp. If you're putting in lights and darks like that, just keep it really simple. What is your darkest, darkest, darkest dark? That's value number one. What is a medium value? And what are you going to leave light? So don't get too wrapped around having to, all sorts of shades of lights and darks. Keep it really simple for yourself. And the value sorts of stuff will come out more easily. Easier to do from a photograph. There's enough going on if you're just sketching out there in the field. Isn't this cool? Look at on those dorsals. See that? Notice the angle at the back of these. Look how different those two females are. Oh, see, that's what we can get in our sketches. And look at this grayed saddle, this bright large saddle, sort of gray small saddle. Right? That's what I'd be saying out loud to myself. Also notice there's a whole light surface here, and then the front part of it, that's where the real dark is. Remember we talked about that on the pectoral fins, that how
you want to have that either a dark edge or there's a dark side and a light side. And the highlight, if you do include that, it's going to be right between them. So that's legit data that we can be out there sketching and getting. Look at that. So quick little sketch. Everybody do it. I'm going to have an arc at the back that I can see. I'm going to come up straight in the back. There is a tip down, and then it's almost like a curved front to that. Big, bold white saddle patch that cuts in, back, up, in, with a very distinct little black comma in there. This animal must be moving fast. So we can get that information in our notes. There's individuals out there, and they pop up above the surface. These little, their calling card. This is me. This is me. And as observers, we can tell the differences between all those individuals, and that's going to make orca watching so much fun. Can you start to pick out individuals in groups? Look at how different each one of those is. As they're coming up and down, try to track a single individual. But if you realize that there's different individuals in a group, in a pod, can you get features of different individuals on that pod? So on your page, you can get, a bunch of these sorts of things. Let's just pick one of these. Pick one of these. And this time, instead of just the top of the back, here, we're going to continue that line on. Notice that there's a good space between the white spot behind the eye and that dorsal fin. So I have a long line like this coming down into the water. And Melanie head. Makes you want to go out and watch orca. In the water. Wow. Variation. If things are coming towards you, by the way, notice the dark shadow, dark side, light side, dark side, light side. If there is a highlight on these, it is going up there between the dark side and the light side. So fins that are pointing more towards you will be looking skinnier. So you don't have to draw everything in side view profile. But that means that you can, when you're out there and you're sketching, this one I'm going to just dive in straight with my ballpoint pen here. Actually, I can close this little window. We don't need that. So here's a little bit of my body sticking up, and this is coming towards me. And there's a bonus bump there where the blowhole is.
And this little friend here is coming towards me too. No, okay.
So when we look at these saddle patches from the top, it's this wonderful, either kind of, it's a heart, right? Got to putting the love in it. So here's this heart shape. The other way to think of it is it's a big swallowtail butterfly. So there's this big swallowtail butterfly wings coming out here with its tail hanging down, giving you kind of a dark stripe right down the middle of it. And isn't that neat? But look, asymmetrical. So one side doesn't have to be like the other. Huh. So when you are watching your orca go in one direction, you're trying to figure out an individual, that saddle patch can be different going the other direction. You gotta love. You gotta put the love in your orca. You know, that just, even though you're not going to be usually flying, doesn't that just deserve a little sketch because it's so cool? Yeah. But making a sketch of something like this does help us pay a little bit more attention to what those shapes are. Helps us remember later on. The dorsal fin. There. Love me some orca. So let's so just, you know, on a fluke, let's draw the back end of the orca. Look at this shape here. So we've got it's so out to points, little hook at the end, little divot in the middle of it pointing in. You see that same thing here, a less foreshortened angle. So let's just draw in, say somebody's just flapping their tail out there and you get a good look at some tails. I'm going to start with a big triangle. The tips of it stick up, the middle of it sticks down. And now I can refine this edge. Instead of being straight, I'm going to have it come up and then turn and go back in. So this is going to come up and turn and come back in. And these will have various amounts of light and dark on them. So the boundary between light and dark on these tails is going to be different. Dark rim around the side. Oh, it's so much fun to pull kelp around. And then the pattern in here where you kind of go back into the body. If you remember, that's another place where you're going to see variation. So any of this that you get to see. So on this one, let's say it is coming in dark like this, and dark coming down here. And then you want to pay attention to what will my pattern of light and dark be right at this junction right here. These are all good fluky moments to get. Oh. So let's notice something here. If you are kind of, oh, this just makes me so happy. This just makes me so happy. Ah, look at that. Bap, 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 bap. But there's some kind of a cool thing going on here. The side of the fluke that is, so in a kind of simplified drawing, this fluke is a big triangle like this, right? But we're seeing on this side that is pointing towards me, it's kind of flipped towards me. The ends are kind of curled up. So if both ends are curled up, right, and one side is turning towards you, you see all of this side here, and this side ends up really foreshortened towards you. So that side that is foreshortened towards you, you're seeing that as being shorter. So I'm going to just draw this side as that short thing, and then I'm not seeing the foreshortening, even though it's curled. The angle of the body then makes this side facing towards me. And that is how we play with the sea panda. Now I am going to stop share. I'm going to jump back here. So again, I've been showing you a number of tricks on sketching orca, but the reason we're doing this is we're not worried about making pretty pictures out there in the field. We want to just get ourselves to geek out even more at the next level on these individuals, and to get ourselves to look longer and stand in awe of these incredible animals. Drawing is one tool in your quiver for doing that. Another, in your notes, we're going to be counting things. How many orca am I seeing? You can be timing things. How long, how long till the next breath, right? So we're getting numbers in there. That gives us a lot of information about what we're seeing. How many individuals out there? So you can be timing things. Another thing that I do all over my notes is I start writing all over the page. Some things are easier to show with drawing. Some are easier with writing. Like, so if there's a really bright saddle patch, I write in really bright saddle patch. As a matter of fact, let's just sort of jump back down there to that page for one moment more. And notice that on a sketch that I've made, the minute I start doing this, bright saddle, straight front, there's a kink. So anything that you've noticed and included, I recommend that people do what I call show and tell. Right? So show and tell. Show me with your sketch, tell me with your words. Those will reinforce each other, and it's easier to do. But also you're going to find that the minute you start doing this, like let's say this was about 1 meter tall. The minute I start adding in these sorts of notes,
a lot of the pressure goes off this to sort of, you stop thinking of it as a um, as a drawing. You start thinking of it more as naturalist notes. So it's now in pod with 3 females and 2 juvenile males. So I can have some written notes in there with it. And once you start doing this, you'll kind of get yourself into kind of data collection mode. And you'll just be using these sketches to help you record information about what you see. A lot of that pressure goes off of the drawing. So don't get worried about, I've got to make, a piece of nature art out here. We want to just use it as a tool to get ourselves to look more carefully at our friends, the orcas. And an interesting thing will happen then is because you're making a lot more pictures, if you make a lot of pictures, then you get better at making pictures. So drawing's not a gift that some people have and some people don't. It's a skill that you develop just by putting in some pencil miles. It will also radically change the way you observe. It is one of the best things that you can do to become a better observer of the natural world. Include your observations. Include questions that you're wondering about. Include connections that you make. If this reminds you of something that you have observed or encountered before, or another experience you've had, write that down as well. So I think I've got words, my pictures, and my numbers. I've got my observations, my questions, and the connections that I make. Another way of saying that is I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. Those 2 factors come together on your page. You're going to see so much more. You're going to wonder so much more. Your experience of being a naturalist out there is going to explode with wonder, curiosity, and awe. And all of this helps us be able to become better stewards because our relationship with the natural world has just increased. We also have collected data, information, which may help us protect and preserve these animals. Thank you so much for being a part of this program, and I hope that this workshop was helpful for you.